man don't know shit. Rolling. How you doing? Katie O is back in Montreal.
Hello, everybody.
It's funny how this is actually pretty much the topic is that you're back in Montreal on so many levels because I've known you now. I seem to have started almost every podcast with, I've known you now for X amount of years. You know, mostly through shows, and whether it's organizational or hanging out, you know, with all our friends and all this kind of thing. And we got to hang out at Ska Festival this weekend coming.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Any highlights for you?
Well, for me, the biggest highlight was just the fact that when I found out that I could come back to visit, I was sort of given freedom with my dates, and I decided that it'd be a good idea to just come back for Ska Fest since I missed it last year for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And sort of making the decision to not tell anybody and be a little sneaky about it.
You were sneaky.
I was very sneaky. And it was so hard, trust me. I wanted to
sure.
scream it on top of the mountains. But no, I didn't tell anybody I was coming, and I just showed up at the door and was like, hey. And it was amazing seeing everybody. Honestly, it was like one of the most heartwarming things that I've...
Yeah.
Like, it was one of the best nights ever.
I love it. It's so family and communal and all that kind of thing. When I say come back, of course, I mean coming back from Thailand.
Yep.
And we will get to Thailand because, I mean, like a lot of people in North America, I'm like, yeah, I know about Thailand. I've heard about Thailand. Do I really know anything about Thailand? No, I don't. Even if you showed me a map with no names of anything on it, would I even find it? 50-50 here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Hey, I've never been one for geography, to be very honest with you. But first going there for, I mean, I moved there on the fourth time that I visited.
Okay, so you were there before.
Yeah, I'd been there several times before.
Yeah.
I love the country, honestly. It was got to the point where every time I had time to take a holiday or go on vacation or do a travel or a backpack, I just ended up going back to Thailand every time. And people were like, but you've been there. Why would you go back? It's you can't describe it. There's just something so special about that country. The food, the people, the country itself. There's mountains, there's ocean, there's forest, there's city. It's really special. It's amazing.
I've seen a lot of your pictures, and they're absolutely mind-blowing.
Thanks.
When was the first time you went there?
In 2009.
In 2009, okay.
Yeah,
so we're talking 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was quite young. It was my first big travel. I picked up a backpack and went off to Southeast Asia. And my plan was to travel for, originally it was 8 months. But I mean, as all plans go, sometimes they end up not quite coming to fruition. I ended up discovering a little island called Koh Tao. And I mean, it was on my radar, but when you travel, you meet people, you ask questions, they ask you questions, and you know the standards, where are you going, where you been, what do you want to do? Well, I met these Irish guys in the Halong Bay in Vietnam, and they were like, where are you going to go? And I was like, oh, I want to learn how to dive in Koh Tao. And they were like, we have a family friend there that just opened a dive center. You should go check it out. So I actually met those people back in Koh Tao. And I was supposed to be there for about a week, and I ended up staying a month and a half and spending all of the money I had left for the rest of my 8 months in my fourth month. So I actually ended up just falling so deeply in love with Koh Tao that even though I came back and it took me 8 years to go back on holiday and go back to Thailand again for the second time. So many visitors. I love all these animals. Even though it took me a long time, it just kind of felt like home. And some of the people I met back then were still there, and the dive center was still in full force, and in fact had grown and expanded, and it just continued to steal my heart away.
So you show up at this dive center. You don't know anybody at all. Did they speak English?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was a Western-run dive center.
Okay.
So when you own a business in Thailand, you need to have a 51% Thai owner. However, a lot of these businesses, like dive centers, some hotels, some little bars, are Western-run. And actually, when I first walked in, the dive center was tiny back then, but I wandered into the actual reception of the dive center, and there's this tattooed Irish guy with no shirt falling asleep on a chair with his feet on the desk. I was like, excuse me, sorry. Anyway, I told him how I'd come across Koh Tao and how I had come across Irie Cottage. And he was kind of like, well, it's a small place and we don't actually have any room right now. Because back then when you did a diving course, you got your accommodation included.
When you say diving course, was that like you'd never dived?
I'd never dove before.
You never dove before.
It was open water. It's the entry level course.
Okay.
But he was like, okay, you know what? And I was, well, actually, I kind of went like, oh, and I kind of Charlie Brown like, na, 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 na. Walked out of the place, and he kind of came after me and was like, you know what? I'm just going to sort you out. I've got a bungalow across the road. Just stay in my bungalow. I'll sleep in the hammock in the dive center tonight, and tomorrow we'll sort you out with accommodation. Wow. And it was the first sort of instance of the welcoming nature of this place and the family sort of way that it goes. And it hasn't disappointed me. Like, it just keeps on getting better, in fact.
Now, Thailand, as itself, is probably not that large of a place. Or educate me.
Oh yeah, you'd be surprised. It's actually quite big. I mean, I'm like I said, not geography buff. I can't tell you how many square kilometers it is, but I can tell you that if you go up to the north of Thailand and you want to go to Chiang Mai, which is a big city in the north of Thailand, but then you want to get back to the capital. Oh, bless you. It takes roughly 12 hours to get from the north to the capital, which is around the center of the country. And then if you want to go further south, like if you want to go to Malaysia, for example, it would take you probably another, I mean, at least 12, maybe even more, to be honest with you, to get from Bangkok to the Malaysian border. So it's actually quite a long country.
I'm such a kid, I still can't hear or say Bangkok without smiling.
Trust me, it's become a little bit desensitized, but yeah, it still has a little voice in the back of my head
exactly.
going.
So you show up here. There's this Irish dude with his feet up on the table and just saying, you can stay in my place, just like that. Yeah. First of all, it takes a lot of balls. Were you traveling alone?
Well, at that point, I was. But I mean, when you do this kind of backpacking trip in this area, especially because it's so traveled, is a lot of people kind of tend to do the same routes. Okay. And if they don't do the same routes, they do like aspects of the same routes. So, you know, you meet somebody in one city and then you realize that 2 weeks later you guys are going to be in the same city even though you're going a different way.
Right.
So you kind of like come together and apart from people that you meet as you go. But yeah, I had left with a friend and it didn't work out between the two of us. We sort of had a big disagreement. It was
classic traveling things, right? You either become way closer or way apart. Because there's no middle ground for traveling, I think, you know, because probably the intensity of the experience at the same time, and you're flying off the seat of your pants a lot of the time, you know.
Oh, and also like just spending so much time with another human is like, I mean, I get along with people pretty well, but when you're in close quarters and you're taking buses and you're not sleeping well, and I mean, you're having a couple of drinks and all that too, I mean, tensions can run high eventually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you show up here, you spend the night in his bungalow, and then did you go diving the next day right away, or what got you in the water here is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I mean, I've always been a water baby.
Okay.
My mother was a very athletic woman, and she taught me to swim when I was very young, and I was a lifeguard when I was a teenager, and I've always, you know, I've wanted to swim in the sea, and, you know, my mom had little water wings on me in the Caribbean at some point when we were on holiday, and I kept on pulling them up with my teeth, so they were full of holes, but I wouldn't let her take them off, you know, but I was always really good in the water, and I loved the water, and I was curious about, you know, aquariums are amazing, all these fish. I wanted to be inside of it. And I wanted to see what this was all about. And hey, we can't really be superheroes as humans, but breathing underwater is a pretty cool superpower to have. So,
Aqua woman here.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, I can only tell that I've not done any diving, first of all. But last year in Jamaica, I went snorkeling with the new modern, you know, the full face snorkel masks. And I had smoked a big spliff on the beach. And I went in by myself, as you do. And I went in by myself. And I was snorkeling around for about, 30 minutes. You know, I found an anchor under the water. You know, I saw some little pods of, well, actually quite large pods, but of all kinds of little fish and stuff. And then this one fish was probably about a foot long, came up to my mask. So that's where I almost shit myself. And I realized that I'm not in my territory. And I hightailed it out of there. And I'm like, I had to collect myself before going back in. I got freaked out for a second. I was like, I had never been in that situation before. And, you know, you always see video footage in movies and stuff, people swimming around and something going by and it looks all peaceful. I realized within a split second that this is their territory. Now, there's a couple things I did want to get into. Is I want to know a bit more about what diving is and what it takes to be there. But I also scanned your Instagram pictures today before you showed up, and I saw some crazy pictures, which I will steal from you and post on the podcast.
Oh, by all means, please do.
Now I saw you underwater with this gigantic sea turtle.
Yeah.
It looked bigger than you were.
Well, not quite bigger than I was, but I would say that bad boy is about, he must be at least a meter from head to tail.
Now, you know how I said I was scared of that little fish that came up to what's the feeling that goes through your body when this large creature underwater that can move around like crazy, could probably do damage if it wanted to. What was the feeling you had?
See, I think it's different for a lot of people. I mean, obviously everyone has different comfort levels with different things. And I mean, I was lucky that I felt at home in the water right away. And I mean, the more I dive, the more at home I feel in the water. You know, like I'm more stable in my fins than I am in my shoes sometimes.
There you go.
But yeah, it's hard to describe, but you do become at one with the environment. And no, it's not yours. And no, you can't stay long, which is also the beauty of the underwater world is people have crawled all over every square meter of the globe, and we've got so many beautiful things that we've ruined or just touched a little bit too much. Well, underwater, you can only spend so much time. We've got a very, very temporary ticket to go and visit.
Right, so we're definitely visitors there.
Yeah, we're visitors, and that's beautiful. But when you start to understand the underwater world and you become more and more calm, actually animals do tend to get closer to you, and they kind of accept you as non-threatening. First of all,
did you feel like you guys were communicating at all? Like, I don't mean communicating by like signs, but I mean, if you were nervous, you'd probably be twitchy. That might push them away. Did you sense like any connection at all, or is he just like whatever?
Well, they tend to be pretty used to seeing people, so it's not like they're like, you are the fiercest human I've ever seen. No. They've seen a lot of people, but I mean, when you look into a sea turtle's eyes and they look right back at you, it's pretty magical.
I guess, especially considering that, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't know that much about shit, I understand that sea turtles live a long time. So if you're looking into those eyes, you're looking into a lot of years of experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Django's a bit of a lover boy.
Oh, it's okay. He's very sweet, but I don't want you to sit on me, okay, buddy?
That's right.
It's really cute, but not on me. I mean, this is good. This is a good space.
But yeah, it always impressed me whenever I'd hear about just how old sea turtles could be. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years old.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, on our island, we actually have there's a group of people that keep track of the turtles that are in the area.
Okay.
So there are some that you can find out exactly how old they are, exactly where. I mean, some of them were, born in sort of a captive area, so that they're able to get to a certain size, and then they release them. But other ones, they know in the first time that this sea turtle was spotted on Koh Tao and how many years it's been on Koh Tao. Right. And it's pretty interesting. But yeah, they do live to be a very long time.
Do they like tag them and stuff? Or?
Actually, they've got specific markings that are unique to each turtle. So you're able to identify it from the markings.
So you got turtle prints.
Turtle prints, exactly. Yeah.
See, I know shit. That's amazing. And like I saw other pictures as well. I think it was a bull shark or something.
No, it's a whale shark.
A whale shark.
So whale sharks are mysterious creatures. We don't know a whole lot about them. Okay. But they are a giant filter feeder. So meaning the plankton. Oh, really? They don't even eat other fish, really.
So no danger at all?
None. In fact, they're usually curious and really calm. And I mean, they're enormous creatures. Like that particular one was probably about 5.5 meters.
I'm going to post that picture because when I saw that picture, I thought of like the cover of National Geographic. Really. Like it's absolutely amazing.
I happened to be in the right place at the right time for that particular moment with that whale shark. And it also happened to be in the presence of the photographer for the dive center.
Right. All the stars aligned.
Yeah, the stars definitely aligned on that one, and it was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever had underwater as well. So it's nice to have, picture it didn't happen. Well, it happened. I can tell you that.
That's it, right? But I mean, when we say huge, I mean we're talking what, 4 times the size of you or more? Like that thing looked massive.
Yeah, like I said, about 5.5, maybe 6 meters.
Okay.
Enormous animal. Yeah.
It was just so majestic. I literally just stared at it. I was blown away by it, and like I said, that one little fish that came up to my little snorkel mask in Jamaica, I felt not at ease. But I think a lot of that was because I don't have the knowledge as well. Like I don't know what could do damage, what couldn't. I didn't want to disturb it either, but it was actually just coming up to me. But like the bull shark, you say it came up to you?
The whale shark, yeah.
The whale shark. Sorry, I keep saying bull shark. I don't know why.
I was actually not like. They tend to be quite calm and they'll like chill out in an area, and they do these like figure eights. So they stick around sometimes if people are calm and not chasing after them. Mm-hmm. And this one had been hanging around, so I got to this point where I wasn't like 100% paying attention to what was going on. And I just looked up and I was like, oh, well, it's swimming straight for me. Isn't that nice? Okay, it's getting closer. Oh, okay, now it's really close. Excuse me. I'm really sorry. I picked up this wonderful cough and
welcome
sickness.
to Canada, right?
Airplanes are festering tubes of disease as well. So yeah, real fun. Sorry about that. One second. Anyway, basically your breath can affect your body position in the water quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, I'll just let it swim over me. So I exhaled and let all the air out of my lungs, which made me sink a little bit. And it followed me. I was like, well, okay, maybe I'll try the opposite. What if I inhale and rise above it? It'll swim under me. No. Kept on chasing me. And I was sort of on my back and sort of making like frog kicks as strong as I could. Because you're not supposed to touch these creatures either. No. They are a protected species. And not to mention they're enormous and very strong. Like, it's just doing a little swish of its tail to swim could break all of your ribs if it came into contact with you. So, yeah, I was trying to stay away, stay within a good distance from it, but he just kept on coming closer and closer and closer. And I mean, I really could have taken my regulator, which is your breathing apparatus, right out of my mouth.
You know I was going to ask, right? Yeah. Regulator. Isn't that like part of the Young Guns movie? You know, the regulators. Billy the Kid, bitch.
Yeah. I mean, I wish it was that cool. But yeah, I could have taken it out of my mouth and given a kiss right on the face. Like, he was really that close. Like, I actually gave him a couple of kicks trying to keep away from him. Yeah. And I eventually just had to, like, drop a shoulder and sideswipe and just let him swim beside me because it was, like, you know, it had been, I mean, I guess it felt like ages, but it must have been a little under a minute that it was going on.
Yeah, I would be terrified.
Time slowed down. It was so beautiful.
For sure.
But yeah, it was like, okay, I probably should get away from this and let him do his thing now.
Yeah. But it's weird that, do you think it was just curious to?
Well, they tend to be quite curious. Like I said, the sort of right time, right place, the photographer was in the water that day as well, and he has a big camera rig with large strobes on it. Okay. So it was following Patty around for a little while and like going right up to him, to his strobes, and we kind of thought, oh, well, it's bright, it's flashing, he's curious about what this beautiful light thingamabob is. And then when he came towards me, I mean, I was just like, what? Like, what did I do to deserve this?
Yeah.
But I also had bright lime green fins at the time. So it's possible that maybe he just caught the light off my fins and saw the color and was curious about it. But
do they have teeth?
It's like, you know, in Finding Nemo when they get swallowed by the whale?
Yeah.
And it looks like a toothbrush?
Yeah.
It looks a bit like that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's to filter, right? Like water goes in type thing, or traps the fish inside their mouth, right? I think.
So they open and close their mouth as they swim.
Okay.
Which lets water come in through their mouth, and I guess, well, I mean, not the gills and all that jazz, but they filter the food from the water as they're sort of letting it pass through their body.
You're lucky it didn't accidentally filter you through it.
Well, they do get much, much bigger than that one, but that
really?
one wouldn't have been big enough to, like, I mean, you know, my foot could have gone in its mouth, but it couldn't have swallowed me whole.
How deep was that? Like what? Because I say I'm asking the details basically on this experience because I have the picture to show. But like, how deep under the water is this?
So when we were hanging out with it for the good amount of time that it was just kind of floundering about, it was around give or take 10 meters.
Okay.
Which is relatively shallow. And they usually, when they're doing these sort of like pass-bys where they're curious about stuff, it's usually at shallow depths. And I think that, because I remember looking at my dive computer, which gives you the stats about how deep you are, how long you've been underwater and stuff like that, just after I did that big long exhale, and I had dipped down to 18 meters at that point. So I had almost doubled my depth in the short time just trying to like let the guy do his thing and get out of his way. But, or girl, actually. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it's
They?
a boy or a girl. They.
Right? I'm open to everything around here.
Yeah.
I'm open to fucking lining this joint up.
Yeah. Well, it's
Thank
legal
you,
here
SQDC.
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I left just before, or just after the legalization came into effect, and it was still like at the time where there wasn't enough and the lineups were crazy, so I had never given it a shot. And actually, I think this might be my first SQ.
Welcome to legal weed.
What is it?
SQDC.
Thank you. Sorry, no, just letters.
Yeah, that's right. But which is a fun experience as well. I mean, you know, you get the haters that are like, "Oh, it's more expensive." the prices are not that bad, actually. And I like the selection and just being able to choose exactly precisely what you want.
Yeah. Well, hey, when I was like 19, I was like, yeah, I want the cheapest weed I can find.
Right.
But, I mean, as I gotten a little bit older, and that goes for more than just marijuana, cigarettes. But I tend to lean towards paying a little bit of extra and getting a little better quality.
Welcome to adulthood.
Yeah, right. Isn't that weird? I feel like that's the only adult thing that I'm capable of doing. So
Right?
I might take one more hoot.
Yeah,
if I
man.
have a coughing fit, I apologize.
No problem at all. See, that's what I liked about the podcast. There's literally no rules here. You're sitting in the house, we're just chilling out like we always do,
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Big 10 meters. Now you're calling that shallow. To me, 10 meters. What is meters in feet? How deep would that be in feet? I have a hard time measuring meters.
Roughly 30 feet?
Yeah. Okay, so people that are
33
like
feet is 10
calculate
meters?
distance in feet. 30 feet, let's say, give or take. Somebody do the math and post it in the comments, okay? Because I'm not going to. That's quite deep, and that's considered shallow.
Well, the way that I always explain it to my students, for example, or people asking me about diving is when I was a little girl, I grew up in the West Island of Montreal, and I did a lot of swimming lessons and stuff like that at the Pointe Claire pool. And the Pointe Claire pool has a 10-meter diving platform for practicing the jumping diving.
Yeah.
I used to think that was the tallest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Like, I remember looking up there and being like, I could never go up there. It's so high. And now, actually, the maximum depth that I've reached is 4 times deeper than that. So when you're underwater, you don't perceive, like, it just doesn't, the gravity of the distance it doesn't exist anymore.
Right. I guess
like you're just
in the water
underwater.
or out of the water type thing.
Yeah, it's really hard. It feels very different. Like, it doesn't feel very different between,
Okay, yeah.
say, 10 meters and 30 meters.
Is there a big difference in light at that point?
It depends on cloud coverage and stuff like that. But yeah, you start to lose the light. And I mean, not necessarily in terms of the brightness. Yeah, the brightness does go down a little bit. But actually, the water will absorb light to the point where you lose colors. So
Right.
red actually looks really brown when you're down at 30 meters.
Neat.
All part of courses that I teach. Anyone who wants to come to learn to scuba dive.
Well, that's it. Okay, so here you are. You go on this wild-ass adventure. You end up in Thailand, accidentally bump into a dude with his feet up on a chair.
Yeah.
Says, hey, crash at my place. We'll figure out details of how we can get you in the water over here. And that was on your first trip.
Yeah.
Then you come back to Montreal, and you go back, and you did this, I think, 4 times, he said? Went back and forth.
So I kind of got caught in life when I came back, and 7 years later I decided, okay, it's time for another trip. I'm going to go back to Thailand. And I had a friend of mine at the time actually decide she wanted to come with me. So I got to go back to Thailand and see some areas that I hadn't seen before.
Right.
But make sure that I got back to Koh Tao and bring someone along with me. So when I was there, I was just a tourist again. I was like, yay, I'm visiting Thailand. This is great. And she was going to do courses. So she did some courses, and I was just going to do what we call fun dives, which are just like going out to look for fish. It's not, it's just fun. And I sort of, because I had known people that were still there from years before, you sort of get sucked into the local environment. And somebody eventually just said to me at one point, like, you've got all these fun dive book. It's great that you're going to do fun dives, but why don't you just like do the next course? I was like, why don't I just do the next course? Like, that does sound like a good idea. So I became a rescue diver. At that point. So basically,
Who were you rescuing?
Well, you basically learn how to deal with problems in the water and under the water, whether scuba diving or snorkeling or whatever, but like panic divers, unconscious divers, things like that, which gives you a cool awareness of sort of
So that would
risk
be me,
assessment.
the panic diver, and you'd be pulling my ass out.
Not if I took you, K-Man. I promise you wouldn't be the panic diver. No, but if stuff does go wrong, I mean, it is, as much as it's a lazy sport, it is an extreme sport, and there are risks involved. So it's a cool sort of side of things to see how to deal with those problems should they arise.
Right.
And then when I left that time, actually, it was pretty funny. One of the guys that I had met the first time I was there. So the dive center is owned by an Irish fella named Trevor. Hi, Trevor. Trevor's brother, Barry, became a close friend of mine, and Barry is still a very close friend of mine. Hi, Barry. Barry drove me to the pier on his bike the day that I left Koh Tao. And Barry is a kind of a I mean, you know what? He's a grumpy fuck. I love him to death, but he's a grumpy dude.
I can relate.
Yeah. And he's a man of few words in a lot of ways. And, you know, he's not one that showers people with compliments and hugs and things like that. But he looks at me and he goes, "Put your shit down." And I was like, okay. So I put all my bags down. I thought he was going to yell at me. Anyway, he grabbed me in this big hug and he was like, "Don't do that to us again. Don't you wait 8 years before you get back." Yeah. I said, "Don't worry, Barry. I promise you I'll be back within a year. I'm going to come back. I want to become a dive master." And that was April of 2017. And in January of 2018, I went back to do my dive master training. So I was supposed to spend 3 months, and I ended up extending my ticket. So I stayed an extra month.
I'm noticing a trend here.
Yeah. And actually, when I did come back, my mom was like, you know, I really had a feeling, and I even said to your stepdad, I told him, like, I don't think she's coming back this time. Well, I had to come back. But I did my dive master training, which is like the sort of doorway into professional diving. Okay. So it's the first time you can work as a diver, really. And basically you lead certified divers, help people refresh their skills if it's been a while since they haven't dove.
It's like, we're talking master diver here.
It's actually, master diver is a different thing.
Oh, okay.
So a master diver is actually still recreational. A dive master is someone who works as a diver, who takes people diving.
How intense is this course? Like, you know, it sounds like it's a big deal here.
Well, yes, there are definitely serious parts, and there are definitely a huge, like, you learn so much in this course. Right. Sweet spot, you can do it in 4 weeks. Sweet spot is about 6 to 8, though.
Okay.
And there's portions of the course, so there's a book that you need to read and answer questions and do an exam. And then there's, like, fitness sort of oriented tests involved. Right. And then there's some workshops that you do, so working on your navigation and things like that.
I didn't think that navigation, I don't know why, I probably should have, but I didn't, now that you say it makes perfect sense, but I didn't think of navigation being an issue.
Navigating underwater is one of the hardest things to do, honestly. As a dive professional, it was the biggest one and I'm still working on it. I'm not gonna lie, I still get lost.
You know, to find your way out of the water going up, or are you talking like east-west?
No, we're talking like you descend on a dive site and you need to swim around the dive site and find the spot that you started at. So how do you find the spot that you started at, basically? Which is a lot more complicated than it sounds when you're underwater, because you get turned around a lot more easily and you have to rely a lot on things that you see. So I saw a coral that looked like a dick. I'm going to remember that dick coral. And then when you find the dick coral, you're like, great, that was not far from where I started.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you know, put it in
Hey, I just met you at a big can of soup and 3 pigeons.
This is true. I was confused, but then I saw it and was like,
It just, if that sounds really weird to anybody, at Longueuil Metro in Montreal on the South Shore, there's this giant like sculpture of pigeons and soup. Hello, Chai. Whenever a joint gets lit up, Chai arrives. And I have proof now.
Smart kitty.
Yeah. But yeah, so you take this course.
Yeah.
We're talking between 4 and 8 weeks, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And you know, hopefully you pass the course.
Oh yes.
And it sounds like it's a pretty intense
with
course.
Flying colors.
With flying colors. Yeah. What's the next thing? You go on to teaching?
Well, see, this is the thing, is that teaching is a whole other certification.
Okay.
So when I finished my course, I actually stuck around Koh for a little while longer, and I did do a little bit of work. Don't let the Thai government hear me say that. But I did do a little bit of work and got a little bit of experience and just kind of like did a little bit more. And then obviously I racked up a whole bunch of debt and had to come home and work. So I came home and I worked a last contract in my old job. And my every intention was to, put the money aside and plan out my year so that I could move to Koh Tao, but maybe do it in December or January. And I was working this contract and it was crazy. 80-hour weeks and stuff like that. So it was just absolutely exhausted and working like a crazy person. One morning I woke up to a message.
Man, 9 to 5 sucks.
Oh man, 5 to 9, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. That was my kind of job back then. And like I said, the light at the end of the tunnel was there, but I was planning the time frame to be a little bit different than it worked out. But basically, I woke up one morning with a message from the owner of the dive center saying, like, get on the plane. Yeah. And I'm sure anyone who's listening, that's, you're probably sick of hearing this story, but yeah, there you have it.
How long of a flight is it to Thailand? Like from Montreal?
So when I go, it usually entails a 14.5-hour flight and then a 6-hour flight.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's great. It's great fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap.
No.
It means it's not easy to get back and forth, that's for sure.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But you got back there.
I did, and I was lucky enough to have the owner of the dive center, who's a friend of mine, sort of believe in me and know that even though I wasn't yet qualified to do the job that he offered me, he knew that I was going to be able to make him proud.
Yeah.
So I finished my contract on the 18th of October. I drove to Toronto on the 28th of October. I spent a few days with my mom. I flew on the 31st of October. I arrived in Koh Tao on the 2nd of November. And then on the 4th of November, I started my instructor course.
Yeah. I'm so not a timeline person. I'm like, okay, yesterday, what did I do?
Oh, yeah, no.
You know,
Just me on a regular
date-wise,
basis. But this is a pretty significant moment
right?
in my life. And it
Yeah.
just, like, it all happened very quickly, you know. I was planning to come in January, and it ended up being end of October. I mean, I sold all my shit and changed all my cards and my addresses, like, on my lunch breaks.
It really sounds to me like you found your calling.
Oh.
You know, and I think everybody does have a calling. I really do. I think a lot of people haven't had the chance to explore and find their calling. But in your case, it was so obvious. Even to us when you would come back, it was obvious that you weren't necessarily here. Like I had the feeling that you were visiting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it did become that way.
Along the way, you've made a switch. So you take this course. Now, I don't know, like, and I've never, like I said, I snorkeled on one trip in Jamaica. That's the most I've ever done.
No, it's a great start.
Obviously, you have tools, you have knowledge and experiences. Probably a whole bunch of other things that I didn't list right there. First of all, what are the tools? Like, what do you need to go deep sea diving 30 meters in the water? You know, I know you need oxygen, so you have one of those tanks on your back. And I know now that you had Billy the Kid there in your mouth.
That sounds very suggestive
right.
there.
Sorry.
Okay, man, what kind of show is this?
Then again, you are the person that just, looks for the big dick to find your way out, right?
Touche. Well, I mean, you need to be able to see. So you wear what we call a mask, which is very similar to, I don't know, underwater version of ski goggles.
Is it one of those modern masks that kind of magnify and curve? So that was one thing that freaked me out with this modern snorkel thing.
Well, those are a whole other story.
Okay.
Those full face masks.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can get all kinds of different kind of masks. I mean, a lot of people would prefer one that's closer to their face, a little bit more low profile. But yeah, you basically need to see, and as long as it fits your face comfortably and keeps the water out, and you can see. Well, that's the point of that one. And then you would need a pair of fins on your feet, so a way to propel yourself because you're carrying gear.
Right. Yeah, I guess. Like I've never even used fins, but I do understand the concept that there's weight, and when you're deep in the water, gravity's different and all that kind of jazz. So it probably you need that extra push, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that are very confusing, like sort of counterintuitive about diving, in that like you wear all this shit because you want to float. Because at the surface, the floatier you are, the easier it is. We're lazy as divers.
Right.
And it's safer, also, by the way. Safety first. But you're wearing all this shit that floats. But when you want to go down, you don't want to float anymore. You want to weight yourself down. So you have to wear this, like, you're wearing weights on. So you have a belt or a pocket somewhere that has weights in them.
Okay.
And depending on your body type and your comfort level in the water.
So let me guess, if everything goes south really fast, you drop the weights and you get up.
Actually,
See?
yes.
Yay, did I pass
Yes,
that?
you do that. And, well, I mean, that's in a very, you can do that. It's a very sort of last resort scenario.
Right,
if you're underwater, if you're dropping your weights, you're going to be in trouble.
I've been kind of known to jump like from everything going good to last resort in one heartbeat.
That's why we love you.
You've done your water.
I've got a bottle. I've got a
Do you want a bottle of beer?
Okay.
Yay. Let me hit the beer fridge.
For sure.
Django, keep you company for 1 second.
Oh, Django. He's
the
so
star of this
handsome.
show.
He's got a very cute little bandana. I guess he's been groomed lately, and it's looks like it's Halloween themed. It's orange. It's got little bats on it and a little ghost. It's very cute.
A spoiled poodle.
Hi, buddy. Yes, I know. You have a beautiful bone. Oh.
Yay. Whoops. I'm not cool. There we go. Cool again. Mademoiselle.
Thank you very much.
Great fun. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back to Montreal.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be back.
Okay. So now we have to see. We have to be able to propel ourselves. So we have the fins. We got the goggles. We have weights because we want to go down. We have a tank.
Yeah.
A tank is that like one tank or is it multiple tanks all mixed together?
That depends on the kind of diving you're doing. But
Okay.
when you're talking like, if you came to Koh Tao tomorrow and said, Katie, I want to try diving, I would give you one tank. And you wear like it's a kind of a jacket
Right.
that has basically a balloon inside of it. It's called a BCD, or a buoyancy compensation device. You strap the tank to this BCD, and then you obviously need to be able to get the compressed air out of the tank in the right pressure for you to be able to breathe it.
Right.
So there's a thing that we call a regulator.
That's the regulator.
Yes.
All right, cool.
So
Now
it screws onto the tank, and then
Okay.
it has hoses. So you've got
multiple hoses?
multiple hoses. One of them will have an air gauge that tells you how much air is inside of the tank.
Okay.
One of them will attach to the jacket and allow you to put air into the jacket from the tank,
Why the air into the jacket?
because you want to float at the surface.
Okay.
So you fill it up when you're at the surface. And then when you're actually diving, if you had no air in it and you had your weights on, when you're going down, you're going to sink to the bottom.
Right.
Negatively buoyant. But when you're diving, you want to be what we call neutrally buoyant, which is the flying thing.
Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah.
So it's basically the balance between the air and the weight you're carrying.
Exactly.
Right? All right.
Yeah.
Now-
And then the last two hoses are the
Yeah.
ones that you breathe from. So you have a primary regulator, which is the one you use all the time, and then you have a backup one. So if something goes wrong with that one, you have a second one.
Where does the air you blow out go?
Bubbles.
Bubbles.
Bubbles. That's very nice. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So now I can get a general picture in my head. Like, I mean, I've seen pictures and stuff, but I
Yeah.
really, like, to hear you describe it, it makes a lot more sense already. You said there's some difference between 1 and 2 tanks, or is it just more air?
Well, see, that's a whole other thing. Is normally when you're doing recreational diving, which is, again, if you came tomorrow and decided you wanted to try it, you'd be doing a recreational form of diving.
Right.
Is recreational limits are 40 meters.
Okay.
And that's with training and whatnot. But you can use air when you're using 40 meters. So the same 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen that we breathe in the air right now would be compressed.
I like the 21%.
It's 21 point. No. But yeah, it's you have the same air that you would breathe on the surface, but they compress it and put it into a tank.
Okay.
So you can play with that percentage. And then when you want to go deeper, you can actually add other gases into the mix.
What other gases?
They mostly use helium. So you'd be using what we call a trimix.
This
so there's
helium
3.
is obviously not to talk funny.
No, it's to sort of balance out. This is very complicated diving. Like I don't even teach this form of diving really.
Okay.
This is just like based on sort of knowledge that I've acquired in books that I've read, and when you understand decompression theory. But basically, in order to make gas levels safe for you to be able to go deeper, you need to mix in different blends.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
See, that whole concept of depth having an effect on you. I mean, like I'm obsessed with submarine movies. I think I've seen almost every submarine movie, and we all understand that when they go too deep, and pipes are starting to crack, and it's getting squished, and there's pressure, and it squeezes down you. We understand that concept, but I don't know much about when do changes begin to occur? Like you're saying recreational diving, 40 meters. I take it after 40 meters, shit starts to change.
Yeah, big time, big time. Yeah, this is like very, very. It's lengthy theory.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn into a science podcast.
Okay, but see, I love science.
Yeah.
I love getting joke you not, at night I hit the bong. Documentary time, bedtime.
Yes,
that's my
very
before
good.
bedtime. All right.
Yeah.
All the
Well,
time.
but also keep in mind with these sorts of subjects as well, like I am a recreational diver. I am interested in technical diving, but I'm not a technical diver yet. I have not done these courses. I've just acquired knowledge from curiosity and speaking to friends that do
Basically,
this
what
kind of
I'm
stuff.
really getting at though is how deep can you go before you get squished?
You wouldn't really get squished. But I think, what was it? I looked this up recently. The world record for the deepest dive is something to the tunes of, is it 318 or 380?
Whoa. Okay, either
meters.
or.
Meters, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you can go. You can go down there, but
Yeah.
obviously shit gets real complicated. Real complicated.
Okay, so within the 40-meter zone, what do we have going on in there? I mean, like as far as marine life, like where you're diving, first of all, is it like, do you see the bottom? Like, is it sandy or?
It depends on where you are, but yeah, the Gulf of Thailand is actually a very shallow body of water.
Oh, really?
So we don't go, it doesn't get much deep. It doesn't get very deep.
Yeah.
So our deepest dive sites that we go to on a regular basis, the bottoms would be somewhere around, somewhere in the 20 to 30 range, let's say. Right. And sometimes you'd have to go off.
And within that range, that's deep enough for a bull to
a whale
swim
shark.
by. Why do I keep going back to bulls? It's because I grew up on a farm.
I would love to
right?
see a bull shark, trust me,
Right.
but that's a whole different, that's an actual predatory.
Stay away from the sharks.
Pelagic shark.
Stay away from the sharks. We want you to come back. I know there's hardly any attacks and all the...
You have more chances of getting hit in the head by a coconut and it killing you.
Yeah, but I'm not always underneath the coconut tree either, am I?
Sharks are misunderstood.
I hear you. I'm going to stay far away from them.
That's fair. That is totally fair.
But yeah, like within this zone, I guess you'd call it, or depth. But I mean, you're seeing like crazy stuff already.
Well, I mean, I get to see beautiful fish all of the time, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Koh Tao it's a comfortable, beautiful place to dive. We have nice coral, we have nice fish, but
so you have live coral reef there.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh wow.
But the thing is that, like, you know, you talk to people that have been diving in Indonesia, for example, and they're like, I saw mola and manta rays and sharks, and there's no sharks around Koh Tao at the dive sites. Good. At least, I mean, I can't really say none, but I mean, I've heard of small sharks at night at certain dive sites, and you can snorkel with baby sharks.
No, you can't. You can't snorkel with sharks. But I just find that shit, it's crazy. Yeah. You know?
But the average stuff that we're getting, like, we're getting loads of coral dwelling fish. So, like, you get, like, little fish that just hug the rocks and the coral, and they're like it's like snow, but they're like little tiny fish everywhere.
That's awesome.
And then we get various other kinds of fish. We get blue-spotted ribbon-tail rays, which are a beautiful brownish-looking ray with electric blue spots on it.
Wait, ray?
Like a stingray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that what killed Steve Irwin?
I think it was.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's what got him.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be that particular kind of ray. I mean,
right.
But
are they dangerous? The other kinds?
Well, I mean, so they have barbs in their tail a lot of the time. So I mean, if you
because I think a goldfish could probably take me on.
Come on, just jump down your throat and choke you.
Right? Exactly. Then they'll find a way. No, but like a ray, do you want to get close to them?
I mean, general rules is we don't touch anything.
You're right.
We don't touch fish. We don't touch coral. We don't touch anything because we're in their zone.
Yeah. You're a great visitor. You're a great guest.
Oh.
Yeah, come in. Don't mess anything up. Leave it the way it is.
Exactly.
And get out. Right.
Leave only bubbles, just to be cheesy. But I mean, you can get close to these animals within reason, obviously. But a lot of the different kinds of fish are just like, they just want to be left alone. You know, like they don't want to be approached. And they're afraid of you, to be quite frank. So they'll swim away. If you start swimming up to a stingray and trying to poke it, it's going to swim away.
Except for the one that got Steve around. He's like, fuck you, dude. You're not sticking your thumb in my ass.
Well, yeah, he was Steve, I don't know. He was probably cuddling the thing.
Because wasn't that a South Park thing where he was running around trying to stick his thumb up?
I wouldn't put it past them at all.
I think so. I can't remember it correctly, but something like that. You know, like I do think it's really cool. It was one of my questions, you know, about, you know, when right at the start of the podcast, I was talking about how I noticed right away I'm in their territory. And it's beautiful territory.
It is.
And I think it's really cool, like, to hear, like, right off, you know, one of our rules is, you know, we've got to be respectful for their territory. Yep. People are going to, or, well, first of all, for them to flourish and do well, but that's absolutely incredible. I saw the picture of the ray, by the way, as well.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm like, I wouldn't want to get near one of those at all.
They're pretty small. They're not that big. They're like, most of them are about the size of a dinner plate. Yeah. So it's not like, we're not talking meters and meters. This is like little guys.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So now you got into teaching.
I did.
Finally, this is where we're arriving. Now you're teaching. Now you get to deal with the panic people.
Yeah. Usually try and sort that out before it gets to the point of panic.
What it's basically usually tourists, I imagine, that show up there, and then you take them out.
Well, it's a spot that a lot of people go to learn how to scuba dive.
Okay.
Not only is it relatively inexpensive in Koh Tao to learn, but the conditions are very favorable to new divers.
Right.
Calm waters, not a lot of current. It's usually, I mean, depending on the time of year, obviously, if you come in the middle of monsoon, it's not going to be good visibility. But we usually get really nice visibility. Like, you can get 20 meters, 20, 30 meters in the best of the times. Yeah, it's just like a really beautiful place to go diving and to learn.
How do you like the teaching aspect of it, though?
I love it. Yeah, I was telling a friend today, actually, that I didn't realize how much I was going to like it, but I've never felt more, like, in my element. I've never felt like something that I've done has been so fitting, and especially, like, I get paid to go scuba diving, guys.
Fantastic.
What did I do?
Yeah, that's
I
really
lucked out.
freaking cool, girl.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know many people that just say, screw all this noise. It's cold in Canada. Fuck you and your freezing rain. I'm outie. I'm going to go swim with these giant fishes. And, to be able to continue doing that, pass on my knowledge to someone else and get them doing it as well.
Yeah.
You were saying when you took the course, and I'm very curious, all those, you had to learn how to deal with a situation that could go wrong. First of all, what could go wrong? See, I like to know how this could go south,
Well, I mean, there's a whole host of different things. I mean, obviously, someone could have a heart attack in the water or a stroke or...
So medical conditions.
Medical conditions. Someone could get really tired and just like need a hand,
Right.
Someone could panic
I
properly.
didn't even think of the whole, you got to be in shape to do this as well, especially if you're swimming around for a long time.
You don't need to be Michael Phelps. Trust me. It's all right. Like,
was he the guy that got busted smoking all kinds of weed?
did he? I have no idea.
I shouldn't start any rumors if that's not true. Oh, no, I'm thinking the bike guy. The biking guy.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. Cheers to him, though.
Yeah. The biking guy. Yeah.
All right. So you had to learn, like, how to deal with these situations. Yeah. When you're teaching, has it happened that somebody panicked or equipment went bad or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, really?
I mean, this stuff does happen, and when you do a lot of diving, you have more chances of it happening.
Yeah.
Like, the track record for diving is pretty good. Not a lot of bad things happen on the grand scheme of things, considering how many dives are being done every single day all over the world. But yeah, the more you dive, the more chances you have of something going slightly awry.
The whole thing about being a trucker as well. If you spend that many hours on a highway, you're going to see more shit, right?
Exactly. But I mean, I've been lucky. I've had very, very minor panics, and everyone was always safe, and everything was always fine, and no one got injured. But I've had a couple of students maybe not really want to finish the course, and you give them some time, and
some people get freaked out along the way, and
some people get freaked out, some people drop out. It happens. And sometimes people get dehydrated.
Really?
And dehydration is a really bad thing for diving.
Okay.
You want to be very, very well hydrated, and I mean,
I never thought that would be one of the issues, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We're talking salt water on the outside sucking the hydration out of you, I imagine.
Well, it has a lot to do with it. I mean, compressed air is very dry.
Oh.
And also, the more you want your circulation, your body to be working in full force, and having a lot of water is a really important thing. You can burn up to 600 calories a dive. So even though it's lazy, it can be quite physically exerting. And I'm talking like strong currents and cold water and stuff like that. Right. But it is a physical activity, and you are working. And keep in mind, you do it in tropical places like in Koh Tao. The humidity is so high that you can basically see the air, and it can get 40 degrees in the sun.
Wow.
It gets real hot in the hot time of the year. So people are on holiday, and they had a couple of beers with dinner, and they didn't get drunk, but they had a beer or two, and then they ate a bunch of food. It has fish sauce in it, and then they're walking around all day and they're sweating their brains out, and they get dehydrated. And dehydration is not a super good.
It's funny. I always I don't know if this happens to other people, but all sports, you're sweating, you need to drink a lot. But it went maybe because it's a water sport. I never think of water sports being sports that you need to drink of, and obviously you do. But it just never, dawns on me.
Oh no, it's completely counterintuitive, but it's like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Keep in mind.
Water everywhere, and still that boat did sink.
Ah, touche.
That was the next line of that poem.
I'd like to visit that boat.
That poem was written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and it was called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Well, look at you.
Aha. Whoa, I don't know where that happened. Oh, I do actually. Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden did an epic 13-minute song based on that poem, and when I was 15 years old, I would listen to it all the time.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Bruce Dickinson, for that piece of knowledge. You know what? I'm convinced that a lot of the knowledge I have is from music and song lyrics.
You do tend to acquire a lot of random pop culture references. And
well, that's it. I mean, I was the type of
whatever.
kid that, like, even in class would be listening to music. I was always listening to it, or writing out the lyrics to make sure I understood them as a kid. I always got into lyrics and writing in general. But yeah. Now, if somebody said, I would like to go diving, where should I go? Would you recommend them to go out your way?
Yeah, I mean, always. Excuse me. I was enchanted by Gotao. I had a wonderful experience.
Is it a big place?
No.
No?
It's like 21 square kilometers.
Oh, really?
It's tiny. It's a little.
Would you call it a city?
No.
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 See, I really have no
Absolutely
idea.
Not. No, it's definitely not a city. It's like, I mean, it's like a tropical Van Cleek hill. No.
It always comes back to Van Cleek Hill.
I know.
We talked about it on, who was I talking with? With Val, actually, on the last episode.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really, 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 really small. Like, some people will say to me, "Oh, we're gonna rent a motorbike and drive around the island." I was like, "Cool. Like, what's your time frame?" And they're like, "We're gonna go the whole day." And I'm like, "You're literally gonna be able to drive back and forth on the one road about 35 times if you're spending the whole day."
Right.
Like, you could literally stop at every single store on the island, and you still don't need a whole day to do that.
Wow. It sounds absolutely beautiful. What language is everybody speaking?
Well, I mean,
sit down, son.
well, it is in Thailand, so yes, there is Thai.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of Burmese workers. So Burmese dialects are very numerous and all very different. So some of the boys are from different areas of Burma.
Right.
And like 2 of them will be from a sort of similar area, but the other one's so far away that they have a hard time sometimes communicating with each other, even though they're from the same country. They obviously figure it out. But
Yeah.
And then there is a very large tourist or just foreigner community. So I mean, English obviously, but there's French, there's Spanish, there's German, there's Dutch, there's Chinese, there's Korean, there's Japanese, there's
So
like
hanging
literally,
out here.
it's very, very, very multicultural.
Really?
Like my dive center, we've got there's an Irish guy, there's a Dutch guy, there's 2 Swiss, there's an Aussie girl, 2 from the UK, 1 from the States, 2 from Canada, and who am I missing? Oh, sorry, 3 from the UK. Yeah.
That's wild, though. I never heard of this place before. I never did.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But except through you.
Yeah.
What about food-wise? What are we eating over there?
Well, again,
see, I'm already like, you're peeking a little thing here going on here.
I'm very excited about food all of the time. And one of the big motivators towards going to Thailand initially was that I love the food. And I love Thai food. I eat a lot of Thai food. There are some really cool little spots. And I mean, my favorite restaurant looks like a cafeteria. Yeah. Plastic tables and chairs. And the menu has pictures.
That's not at all what I thought you would say.
No, this place is like so... I mean, I love it, but it doesn't look like much, But the food is so good and so inexpensive. But there is a lot of, like I said, foreigners that live there. So you can get a good pizza, you can get sushi, cool. You can get Mexican food.
Let's say your buddy says, "Hey, my grandma wants us to go eat at her place, and she's on the inland." In the middle of the island, away from the tourists and the beaches and stuff like this. What's she making for supper?
Oh boy. It depends on where you are in Thailand, I guess.
Work with me.
Southern. It'd probably be a curry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a mussel curry or
Meat, no meat, seafood.
probably meat.
Yeah.
Chicken, most likely, or pork. Yeah.
I like it all.
Oh, I love food. I love food. Rice. No.
All right, so food is awesome. The diving is amazing. You're gonna teach them. Where are you staying?
I have a tiny little wooden bungalow. It's so wonderful.
Aww.
It's I mean, it doesn't have AC. It didn't have hot water. I got a hot water heater, but I've only turned it on maybe a dozen times. It's a bedroom with a fan over the bed and a little bathroom and a kitchen, and I'm putting this in quotations.
Yeah.
It's basically a sink contraption and a fridge and a shelf. I have cooking things that I've been meaning to put together, but I've been a little busy, so I still haven't sort of figured out the cooktop part. And then a little balcony, but it's just a little square, and I love it. I love it so much. I live just across the main road from the I don't want to say resort, but the dive center and hotel.
How is it for things like bugs or snakes that want to eat you and rats and all that kind of thing? Like, because when I go places, sometimes I end up in places that sound exactly like you're describing right now, and I woke up one night with a rat in the ground. We killed it accidentally in our sleep.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was just hanging off the end of the bed.
God.
It was awful. I probably had some murder dream or something, but it was just at the end, by my feet at the end
Oh
of
my
the bed.
God. Yeah.
But,
no,
yeah.
no
That,
thanks.
because I always say, I was asked recently, are you interested in going to tour in Australia? Like, hell no. Everything wants to kill you over there.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely all of the above that you just mentioned.
Right.
Like, there are bugs, there are snakes, there are rats, there are lizards, there are loads of cats and dogs.
Well, that's good because they'll take care of them.
It depends on the cat or the dog.
They're
Some of
losing
them,
the battle.
yes. Some of them very lazy.
Right.
I mean, if you were a dog and you lived on an island, you played on the beach all day and people fed you,
Yeah, I guess
think you'd be
not.
chasing rats? No.
You fuck all that shit. Leave that for the cats.
The cats do the same thing, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So there, because obviously you're in nature. I mean, you're talking about a small town and stuff like that. Because I wonder, growing up on a farm here in Canada, I wonder what it's like growing up on a farm over there. Is it the same? Is it radically different? I wonder, do they have cows and stuff like that? Because they're getting their meat from somewhere. They might be imported.
Yeah, well, a lot of the food is brought onto the island from the mainland. I'll be honest, I don't know that there are any. I mean, there probably is a cow at least,
All right,
but
now
I've
you have
never
a
seen
mission.
one.
Find me a cow, Katie. I need a cow.
Like I said, 21 square kilometers. It's
Right.
really little, and a lot of the island is like mountain.
Yeah,
so
you're definitely not gonna have too many of them. That's
No,
for sure.
well, there's loads of chickens. Let me tell you, there are shit tons
Side
of
of
chickens.
the road.
Oh, everywhere. The people next door to the sort of area that Syrie Cottage has, where my bungalow is, this man just loves chickens.
Yeah.
He's got shit tons of them. And I've been told, and I've never seen it, but I've been told that he has a chicken gym. So there's a little chicken treadmill and little
Chickens on
chicken.
roids.
Yeah, well, they do the fighting cock thing
Do they?
in Thailand,
Oh,
big time.
shit.
So yeah, some of them are probably
Yeah, that's a no-go
roided
here
up
in North
chickens.
America.
Yeah, over there they gather and watch it on TV.
Really? It's like an
It's
event?
a huge thing. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit. Because UFC is really humane.
Yeah. Those are people.
Right,
So
right,
they're
right.
on volition. They've chosen
That's
to go
it. Yeah,
fuck
yeah.
each other up.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, But man, just hearing you talk about your love for this place, I would love to one day head down there.
Dude, you would absolutely
Yeah,
adore it.
yeah.
You should totally come.
It would be absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
You're planning on leaving town soon, I take it.
Yeah, I am going back. Well, my mom lives just outside of Toronto, so I'm going to go on Monday, which is the 28th. Back 28th, yeah. Back to Toronto. Spend some time with my mom and my grandmother and my dad, and
back to the diving.
And then on the 6th of November, I go back to the diving.
Yeah. Well, Katie, thanks for sharing a bit with me, because like I really obviously did not know anything about diving. And I just want to say, cheers, girl. It's good to have
Cheers
you
to
back.
you. Thank you so
And,
much for having me. It was a lot of fun,
really,
man.
really, what an experience. It's just absolutely so cool. And I learned something today. So K-Man's learning shit.
Yeah.
We're done. Fantastic. Oh, K-Man don't know shit.